Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ohio State Primetime Live. I'm your co-host Ryan Spano.
I'm Garrison Gaddy.
Garrison, it's actually been a week since we last spoke. I know you had some things to take care of on Thursday, but we got some good news today, and
Yes, we
that's
did.
what I want to start with. Ohio State was able to get the the best safety in the country, Blaine Bradford. He is the number one safety in the class of 2026. He is a recruit that the Buckeyes have been, pretty steady on for a while. And what makes it, pretty, I guess, surprising for most of the outside world is the fact that he's from Baton Rouge. And Ohio State was able to steal from LSU right from their own backyard.
Mhm.
So Bradford comes in and becomes the eighth member of the Buckeyes class and actually becomes the second five-star recruit along with Chris Henry Jr. So thoughts on the Buckeyes landing Bradford, your thoughts on him as a player in general?
Well, as a player, he honestly reminds me of Caleb Downs in a way.
Yeah,
I think
I
that.
agree.
What is that?
You good?
Sorry, I had music playing, but no, he actually reminds me of Caleb Downs, kind of built in the same way that he is. Uh, Downhill guy, can cover, of course, but really likes to
Mhm.
begin the action, just like Caleb Downs is in the middle of the field, what he does in the defense for Ohio State on defense. Um, Shout out to Matt Gary. shout that he led on this recruitment. Of course, you got the big guy still involved still, but he spearheaded it. He got the job done, and of course, just like you said, it was surprising. Now, I did think Ohio State was going to land one of the top four safeties in the country. I did believe they would. Did I specifically believe it would be Bradford? No, I did not.
Yeah.
Now, the cautious part of me wants to say, okay, well, it's pretty early. It's earlier than I thought that he would make a decision. He does visit Baton Rouge, goes back to LSU a week after he visits Ohio State on the 13th and then the 20th of June, I believe. So we'll see how that all shakes out. It's a very long time, but from the looks of it, he's happy to be part of it. He said a lot of it has to do with the culture there at Ohio State. It's a winning culture, and same for his dad. So I'm happy.
Yeah, no, me too. You mentioned these are the visits that Bradford still has to take. So next weekend he'll be at Texas, and then he comes to Ohio State the following weekend, and then the weekend after that, which is June 20th, that weekend he will be at LSU.
Mhm.
So obviously you got to survive a couple more visits there, but from my perspective, and there have already been reports that he's locked in with Ohio State no matter what. But if
Yeah.
he's going to make this decision before going ahead and taking those other visits, my assumption is that he's really locked in with what Ohio State has, going for him. And whether that's, the coaching with Guerrieri, the defense that Matt Patricia wants him to play, the NIL compensation, or, more than likely all of the above. And, I agree with you in the fact that he is a little bit like Caleb Downs. Like you mentioned, he likes to get downhill and affect the running game. He's 6'1", 207, so he's a pretty stout boy.
Yeah.
He can go in there and, he can do quite a lot when he's in there. But again,
Mhm.
he, like Downs, he can also cover a lot of ground, back there at safety. And for the Buckeyes to lose Caleb after this season, because he will be going to the NFL, there's no bones about that, even though he's got a year of eligibility left, and to be able to replace him with someone like Bradford, I think is huge. Um, now, he, he is going to have he's going to have some competition as a true freshman to get playing time right away.
Mhm.
If he, once he comes in, because it is really hard to play as a true freshman at Ohio State, no matter what position you play. But as we
Mhm.
saw with Jeremiah Smith last year, if you're good enough and you've got the goods, you're going to play and you're going to play a lot. So, assuming Bradford's commitment holds, and like you mentioned, 2026 is a long time away. December is several months away, and until that, national letter of intent or whatever they've replaced it with at this point is signed, sealed, and delivered, Ohio State's gonna have to
Mhm.
keep recruiting this kid, and that's just the nature of recruiting. But very exciting for the Buckeyes to go ahead and get him, and it's a good start for the defensive recruiting because we've seen 3 offensive linemen commit here. They've got a wide receiver commit. It's been a little bit since the defense has gotten on the board, so it's good to see. It's good to see them get on the board here.
Also, so I didn't watch the video because I wanted to wait till today to get your thoughts on this commitment. But the third offensive lineman in this next upcoming class, Sam Greer, commits to Ohio State. Now, you give me the layman's notes of what you talked about on the commitment video for him.
Yeah, he is someone who the Buckeyes like as far as his potential. Now, he's not someone who's probably going to make an impact day one. You put the stats there on the screen. He's a big dude. 6'7", 312. That's those are some big stats. But he's got some football development to do. Simply, injuries have been a part of his story. It kept him out of his freshman and sophomore football seasons, so he didn't really get a whole lot of work early. So he's very raw. So that's something that Ohio State recognizes, and he's going to need coached up. Like like I said, he is not ready to contribute right away. Give him a couple years of some coaching, and he's someone who has all the physical tools to be a good offensive lineman. And he simply helps Ohio State have more depth at the offensive line position. And they need more numbers. We've talked about how the last few recruiting cycles weren't exactly up to par in terms of just sheer numbers for the offensive line. Right. And now with all of the guys that they lost, they lost 4 starting offensive linemen essentially from last season. They lost a couple in the transfer portal as well. So that room's pretty thin. So getting a guy like Greer helps them for the future, helps them go ahead and build that depth up. So he's a pretty good player, and expect him to contribute here, and not right away, but like I said, sophomore, junior year.
Yeah, I see him the same way you do. A little bit of a project, but he has all the tools. Again, like massive kid, massive.
Yeah.
I do believe that you get a kid like that because you've seen enough to know that he can play at this level. He has a grown man's body, even more so than a grown man's body. 2 of them, to be honest. So with that being, with knowing that show him some new techniques once he gets here, there's a chance you can make a kid like with size like that and potential, you can turn him into a very good football player. And so I do believe that he's a great addition to the class for what he can be. And based off of what Bowen has done already in the recruiting class on the offensive line, as part of it, I think he's done an exponential job so far. He's honestly done more than I expected already, to be honest with you. So
something that I like that he's done so far is he hasn't limited his recruiting pool. I feel like Fry was kind of limited in who he would offer, and that just reduced the chances that you're going to get a commitment. Bowen, I'm not going to say he hasn't been picky, but he's been throwing out offers to a lot of guys, and honestly, a lot of dudes in the state of Ohio, which I think is important as well. So there's still some big fish out there who he has his eye on, and I know we've talked about other chances of getting Jackson Cantwell aren't they're not super high in our opinion, but they're certainly not out of them. But if they can get a couple of really good offensive linemen in this class, and a couple, high 4 stars or even a 5-star, then I'm going to feel excellent about Tyler Bowen's first recruiting class.
No, for sure. What would you grade him right now?
Bowen? For the short time he's been with the program, I'd give him so far I'd give him a B+, A-. We haven't seen anything on the field yet, obviously. So
strictly recruiting wise, strictly recruiting.
Well, I know that. That's essentially what my grade's going off of, because we haven't seen anything else. But he hasn't landed any super highly regarded kids. Maxwell Riley's the top offensive lineman in the state, and then Greer's obviously pretty good there from Archbishop Hope. And Trey Smith, he's only a 3-star kid. He's someone who I see more as a depth piece. I don't really see him. He is a project as well. I mean, he's someone who needs development. So he hasn't landed any blue chip guys yet, but I love that he's coming out firing and locking down some commitments. That's always going to be fine with me.
Yeah, I'm right with you.
Yeah. I'm right with you. No. So that was obviously the good news that happened today. There was also some other good news, I guess, that happened today, and we'll go ahead and jump into the tight end group because we had a tight end lose his black stripe today. And that is transfer tight end Max Klare, who anyone who watches this show knows how infatuated with him you are, which for good reason. He was the number 1 tight end in the transfer portal. He caught over 50 balls last year for Purdue, over 400 yards receiving, over 500 yards receiving, I believe. 4 touchdowns. He's a guy that gives Ohio State a lot of action up the middle. He can be a seam route guy. He can be a quick button hook guy, and he's a good blocker too. Like it's not just his pass catching skills that have everyone excited. He can block in the run game too.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts on? He lost his black stripe in only 8 practices, which is pretty quick. You kind of expected that to happen with him being a transfer and how highly touted he is. But what are your thoughts on Klare and just the tight end room in general?
Well, firstly, what's so awesome about Klare is that I don't remember the last time Ohio State could honestly go and say they might be going into this season with, if not a top 5, maybe the best tight end in the country. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not quite going to go there. But he's really freaking good.
Because there's a chance he could I would say coming into this season, I would say him the best tight ends I would talk about are probably him and Sadiq from Oregon.
Yeah.
Even coming out of Purdue last year, he was probably, I guess you would call him the 4th best tight end last year since he was the honorable mention. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot there from him that I think he brings to the table. He's better than any of the tight ends we've had since talent wise since Jeremy Ruckert. Would you say that?
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm very excited to see what he does. Again, I think with a new quarterback, having a tight end really helps. So you have something that he, just in case it all breaks down to the outside, man, you can dump, like you said, just dump it off, button hook it, little screen to him. You can get him the ball. He can do a lot with it. Also, he's I won't say a great blocker. He's a really good blocker. I think he's very capable in that facet. But something like they said that he talked about from Pat Murphy. I saw his article. He said there's a lot of growth that he's gotten, even with Jelani Thurman being there. Because of course, like the talent at Ohio State is better than what you're going to see at Purdue.
Of course.
But when I saw that, and it looks like people are saying like the whole room is looking good. That makes me happy because that means Jelani is showing something. Because that's been my biggest thing. I think he's a physical freak. He's a physical freak, like what 6'6", 250, but consistency. And so and also still having Will in that room. Also, Christensen. I think there's a lot that room can offer, and it seems like from the top to the bottom, they've risen their play, or at least maybe Max Klare has risen to play the other guys, so they see what it should look like.
Yeah, and you mentioned you mentioned Jelani, and Jelani is someone who has had, it's not just the fact that he's had consistency problems. It's been injuries. Like he's not been able to stay on the field, quite frankly. And he's gotten passed up on the depth chart a few times because of that. Bringing in Klare makes it even tougher for him to get on the field. I'm not entirely sure what I'm expecting from him this season. To me, he's one of those guys that's just like, hey, if you're available, you're available, and that's just a bonus for me. We have. It's just he's someone that is so, like you mentioned, physically talented. Like he's got a lot of physical traits that you would love to have in a tight end.
Long arm.
So he is, yeah. I mean, it's just if he can ever put it all together, he would be good. But time's running out. So it's kind of the same deal that we talked about with CJ Hicks, where I don't care what your ranking was out of high school anymore. I don't care what your potential is. We kind of need to see it on the field here at some point. And that's just, it is what it is with him at that point. We'll see what Will can bring back now that he is, healthy. And I think, I mean, to be honest, I think we're mostly going to see a lot of Klare. So, and that's what I'm excited for. And I think that's what a lot of fans are excited for.
Is there, who do you think will be tight end number 2?
Probably Will. I mean, he was their tight end number 2 last year before he got hurt. And he's going to just, I mean, he's just probably going to be higher up there in the depth chart unless Jelani unless this spring is enough to jump him. But then we'll really see what happens in fall camp, and we'll see if he can stay healthy through fall camp. What do you think?
I'm going to say Will right now because his blocking ability is higher than Jelani's.
Yeah.
He's safer, I guess is the better way to say it.
Yeah.
But
like they know what they're getting in him because he also played at OU. Like he's got experience on the field. Jelani just doesn't really. So you're right. He is the safer option.
And Jelani's best play from last season, or I won't say his best play, but one of his best plays from last season was like a whoopsie daisy, like a.
I was gonna say name a play from Jelani last season. Honestly,
the Penn State play where like Will made whatchamacallit miss, Abdul Carter miss.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, I mean, it should have just caught it cleanly. Yeah. No, I remember that.
You're just sitting there holding your breath, hoping that he doesn't screw it up.
Yeah.
But no.
Got anything else to say about the tight ends here?
No.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to, I know something we've already had a few comments about, and that's the quarterback situation. So the quarterback situation, there was Ohio State had a scrimmage over the weekend, and when I say he, I'm talking about Julian Sayin, who we both think is still the favorite to win the job. But it sounded like he had a little bit of a rough go of it during the scrimmage. Coaches weren't particularly happy with what he was doing out there, and actually it sounded like Lincoln Kean-Holtz was doing a little, was really picking up the slack.
Yeah.
And, the way it seemed is that now it's a true 2-horse race with Tavian St. Clair, way behind, which again, we expected. He's a true freshman. He's going to need time to get up to speed. So, and Day even addressed it today, talking specifically about the quarterbacks. And he's not saying anything that's any different from what he has said in years past when there's been a quarterback competition. He's always looking for consistency.
Yep.
And consistency is the big deal for him. And when he was asked about, the quarterbacks just in general, he said, there's been really good progress in that room. All 3 of them. We're going to keep coaching them, keep pushing them. I think they have the right attitude. I think they have the growth mindset. They need more reps. And I think, quite honestly, that's just the truth. They all need more reps. None of them have started before. None of them, I mean, besides the, mop-up duty that they've gotten between Lincoln and Julian, they haven't seen real snaps. So I do think it's a little bit concerning that Julian is still making some of these inconsistent plays at this point, but he is still very young. And I know you love hearing that Lincoln might have an actual shot at winning this job. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and get your thoughts about what came out of Saturday.
So I'm not too worried about it. we're a few weeks here into the spring.
Yeah.
Ryan Day has, I don't think I'm wrong here. Ryan Day has never called a quarterback battle finish in the spring. Does it pretty late into the fall.
Yeah.
I don't want to say late into the fall, but yeah.
No, but it is in the fall. I mean,
Yeah,
the last time when there was a quarterback competition, it was late in the fall. It wasn't until 2 games into the actual season where he officially named McCord over Devin Brown.
Mm-hmm. So Julian is saying, I mean, Ryan, like along with the quotes you said, I mean, she said Julian's still, as a leader, finding his way as a leader, still getting a little bit more comfortable along with the other 2 quarterbacks in there, being Lincoln Keenholz and Sayin St. Clair. But I'm not worried about it. And the reason I'm not is just because it's so early, and you got Julian going out there, first time, maybe a little antsy, maybe a little jittery. Lincoln's been in this situation plenty of times now. Lincoln's grinded Lincoln's grinded for the last 2.5 years now. Okay, he's just grinding. So I'm not surprised by that. Now, when it comes to Lincoln, this is why I've been trying to just put out there and they put in the universe. What if it's not so much that Julian is playing bad? It's just that maybe Lincoln has taken a little bit of a step. And that step, man, it may not be as talented as Julian is, but maybe you see something different. Now, I do believe Julian's still going to be the quarterback at the end of the day. I don't expect to see Tavian St. Clair. I don't, like I told you, I don't think Tavian will be quarterback too. I think that Lincoln will still have some edge above him. But I don't think there's anything to worry about for the fans, for anybody. Let's give it some time, man.
Give it some time. No, I agree with you. I mean, that's assuming Lincoln doesn't transfer after the spring. This will probably be the last spring transfer portal, and maybe he wants to go find somewhere where he can actually be the starter. So I'm not going to rule that out yet. There's some other things here that Day said that I kind of want to get into. Okay. So when they were talking about, you're talking about how inconsistencies is definitely normal for this time of year because, like you said, we're in the middle of spring practice. It's not as pressing because it's not the fall. And, this is more of a growth phase for really everyone on the team. So Day said specifically, right now, I guess I think back to when I was in the NFL. I'd listen to some of these scouts talk and about players, and then never wanted to show their hands. So they'd make comments like mixed bag to the negative. And that's the way I'd feel coming off the field, talking about coming off the field today. He said this during his press conference. But there's been really good progress in the room, all 3 of them. I can recognize that there's been growth in all areas. Then there's been other moments where we've had 2 or 3 plays in a row that we all get frustrated. Mm-hmm. But we're going to keep coaching them and keep pushing them. I think they have the right attitude. I think they have a growth mindset in that they come in every day and put the work in, the preparation in. They just need more and more reps. So we have to give it to them. So, that's a good insight as to what, Day's thinking. When he says there's that 2 or 3 plays in a row that they get frustrated, that's that consistency factor that I mentioned before. And that's something that Day has preached really since he's been the head coach. They need a guy who is going to be consistent in the plays that they put out on the field, keep those mistakes down, consistently make the right play, whether it's taking the home run shot, going over the middle for 10 yards, or just doing the check down. And I think that's kind of the point that they're waiting for. They're waiting for one of these guys to really, take the reins and be that consistent force.
Again, that consistent word, again, like you said, that's something that he has used for the last few years now. It's always going to be his main word. It's about the good plays consistently. He expects CJ Justin Fields level type of throwing. That's what he expects. That's just what it is.
Which it should.
Is it an unfair expectation? Maybe so. Maybe because everyone can't be that. But it's the expectation. And the expectation is the expectation. So it is what it is. Also on top of that, that did you notice when he was saying more reps how often he kept saying that?
Yeah, and
He said maybe 5 times in a couple 2 second span.
yeah, no, he did.
It's just
So now,
I truly believe. I want to ask you this: how many of those reps do you think Tavian is actually getting?
oh, first team reps, not hardly any.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's getting a lot of second and third team reps, which he should. He's learning the offense. He's got two guys ahead of him who have been in the offense longer, and you know they are just trying to. He's still just trying to kind of find his way into being a college athlete too. Like it's a big life adjustment for him. So I'm not concerned at all that he shouldn't be getting first team reps, quite frankly. Now Lincoln and Julian should be splitting them, and I know you mentioned they just keep saying get more reps, this, reps that. They're trying to get these guys as comfortable as possible because with those reps they should see that consistency start to tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
So, really interested to see how many reps each of those quarterbacks get once the spring game rolls around, because that'll tell me who they think needs to get more reps. Because quite frankly, in my opinion, what I'm going to see in the spring game is whoever is playing the most. That tells me that they need the most work, not who they trust in the most.
Good point.
That's how I'm going to approach the spring game as far as the quarterback position goes. So that's that's my thought on those guys needing more reps.
Mm-hmm. And I want to answer this. So, like, Robert, I honestly do agree with you to an extent, because these are the few things I think you can take away from the spring.
Also, I disagree with the notion that Howard didn't look bad all of last spring. He had like one or two like not great practices, and they knew what they were getting in Howard.
I think what you learn in the spring is the names. If you're looking for younger names, you're looking for, I think, you should be looking for how the transfers are doing, how they're being acclimated to the team. You want to hear about the quarterbacks, but I will always tell people there's only so much you can take from it, because I will always tell, like, just so we're always clear, the defense has the drop on the offense in the spring. They see the same plays multiple times in the spring, and it's very dumbed down. And then I would also be looking for depth for positions.
Yep.
So later in the show, we're going to be doing a early defensive breakdown just of the roster, of the depth chart and roster, just what we're looking for. But I think those are the few things you can take from the spring.
Yeah, and again, the main thing you're also looking for in the spring personally is development. Like you want these guys to be getting better, and you want you also want them to not make the same mistakes over and over. Like, I'm okay with making mistakes just as long as you learn from them. And I think that's kind of also what Dave was referencing. Like, you don't want to keep making the same bad reads or bad throws if you're a quarterback. Like, you want to be able to cut those out. You make those once or twice. Oh, okay, all right. I've seen that happen. Now I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. So overall, I am not worried about it. I still think Sayin's going to be fine. And, unless we come out and in the spring game, all of a sudden he throws 3 or 4 interceptions, then alarm bells might be ringing, and then we might actually have a problem. But I still think Sayin is more than likely the starter. And, we'll see how his development goes, not just here in the spring, but also in the off season when he's, does some work with the receivers in the off season, because quite honestly, that's where a lot of quarterback development happens. Is it's not just work with the coaches on the field when they're allotted the specific amount of time from the NCAA. It's in their off time. In the summer when you're not taking classes or you're taking 1 or 2 online classes, like you're able to, hey, let's go over to the practice field. Let's run some routes. Let's get more chemistry here. So that's also where we see a lot of development.
So actually, I was thinking about this earlier because I was waiting. I was like, man, I was waiting for a little natty bump, and in recruiting. And I want to also ask you this: how do you think this class could potentially end? Because I thought this might be one of those classes where I thought that the offensive line wise, it was going to be very good. But I thought this could be one of those classes that could kind of like slip a little bit. You know, maybe in the 10 to 12 range ranked wise. I thought I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But what do you think? Like based off the last, let's go over the last few weeks. What do you think the potential is for this class?
I am under the expectation that Ryan Day signs a top 5 recruiting class every year because that's the expectation he set for himself. I mean, that's just what they do. Mm-hmm. You know, him and his staff have gotten to the point now where if they sign anything below a top 5 class, it's considered a quote unquote failure. With what happened last year with having so many guys commit early in the cycle and then they fall off at the end, that is what I am hoping to guard against here this year. I would much rather, I know we've talked about this before, I would much rather finish strong when it comes to recruiting as opposed to starting strong. So, you know, if we have, you know, coming out of the spring game, if we end up having, you know, 10 or 11 commits in the recruiting class up to that point, you know, I don't say I get a little nervous, but I would like, you know, it's a long time to hold on to 10 or 11 guys.
No, it really is.
So, you know, summer is where I would like to see a lot of commits happen. You know, June, July during that camp period, that would make me feel a whole lot better as far as it would. And I'm talking specifically like the blue chip guys, you know, those high 4-star, 5-star recruits. But I mean, as far as my expectations are for the class as a whole, I'm expecting at least a top 5 class. What about you?
Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little slippage, but after you said this, I have to agree with this. A top 5 class should be expected every season at Ohio State,
and it's not just the precedent that's expected. It's just yeah. I mean, it's just all of the resources they have too. Like, there's no way there shouldn't be.
No, I agree with you. Is there anything else you got on that?
No, I'm good. Why don't you go ahead and read what you need to read, and we'll get to our defensive preview.
Sounds good. So, everyone, if you are looking to take your advertising in your business to the next level, be sure to join the Voice of College Football and see what we can do for you. Look here for what we have done for our partner, the Win Agency, who has a lot of good things to say about us and what we have done for them on the sponsorship level. Let's discuss how you also can reach your target market by joining us at sponsorships at vocfb.com. Again, that is sponsorships at vocfb.com.
Real quick before we move on to our defensive preview here. So I'm going through the recruiting class rankings for each of the years that Ryan Day has, you know, been the head coach. And excluding the 2019 class when there was the transition between Urban and Ryan Day, he assigned a top 5 class every year. So the lowest has been 5. So that's the expectation.
Okay. Nope, that's the expectation. By the way, everyone, just wanted to but let you guys know, memberships did drop for the Ohio State channel. So if you like, you can go on there and check it out, see what comes with every single tier. First tier is the Blocko Club at $2.99. The second tier is JT wasn't short because he wasn't, and we all know it, to be back at $4.99, and that $9.99 is We Don't Give a Damn, and you can finish the rest. So be sure to check that out also.
Absolutely. All right. You wanted to have a little bit of a defensive overview for what the team might expect here. So why don't you go ahead and kind of take the reins here, and I'm going to see what you have to say here about the defense first.
Let me. Sorry, let me just
So you're a Cowboys fan. Go ahead and talk about that. Damn, I keep hitting it. You keep hitting it.
You can click on it.
There you go.
I don't want that for Travion. I'm like on the verge of joining the NFL fan club transfer portal. I have taken my official visits to Pittsburgh, Houston, and Detroit. And New York for the Jets. So we'll see where I end up here, and it's gonna be a while.
Join Indy. We're taking people. Although if you don't want to have a bad quarterback, that's what you can expect.
Oh man, I can't.
By the way, I
need wins.
Yeah, no. And you know what? Unpopular opinion, I think DJ Lagway is just Anthony Richardson 2.0. I don't think he's going to be any good in the pros.
Oh.
So
I think Lagway's the guy. I think he's the guy.
Let's go ahead and talk about the defense here.
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, everyone, next week, Monday, we'll be doing the offensive side also. But I want to go through it, each level, D-line, linebacker, and DBs, of course. And I wanted we can talk about the depth, which players we think will maybe make a, like you said, Ryan, in the spring game, you expect to see guys that have a lot of work to do. What guys do you expect to see there? What guys do you expect to come out of the spring practices and spring game on top? Mm-hmm. So let's start with the D-line here. I think we would both say McDonald and Houston on the inside, Jackson and Curry on the outside, correct?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think the only position up for grabs as far as starting goes would be the defensive tackle position next to Houston. I think there might be a couple of guys who got a chance. I mean, again, we talked about, is Tyrone Malone going to show up and do something? I know, a lot of people had high hopes for Jason Moore, but we haven't heard a whole lot of his name here this spring. So, I mean, ultimately, I think that's probably the right group to go with.
At the D tackle position, so that has been a worry of mine. I know Mike and I have talked about it. That Larry's had some good things to say about Malone lately. He has dropped down on weight also from last season. So, and it's kind of like a show me year for him. And then also you're probably talking more after that.
Yeah,
young player. Show me a year for him too, and because we need you now. So of those two guys, who do you think is more likely to take the jump?
I would say Malone. And, I do think McDonald's like a good player, so I don't expect any of those guys to jump him. But if there was a guy who was going to push him, I think it would be Malone. I mean, he's shown that he could be a good athlete. I mean, he was on the Ole Miss baseball team as well before he went ahead and transferred over. So, like, he can play multiple. He's shown that he's athletic enough to play multiple sports. He clearly just, and it's what we talked about earlier with the quarterbacks. It's the consistency. Like, he hasn't consistently been able to put the work in, or not necessarily put the work in, but like get the results needed to go ahead and get a lot of play out there. I think he's probably a little bit ahead of Moore. Once you get past these front four guys who, again, were not starters last year. Like, these are all new starters, but this is where I get a little bit concerned as far as like a rotation goes, because we're talking about guys who were third or fourth stringers last year all of a sudden jumping up to getting real snaps. And that's, a little scary. I'll tell you this. One guy who I am excited to possibly get some backup snaps for this year is Josh Mickens. Joshua Mickens, as a defensive end, he's a guy who I think will see the field this year. And I think he's going to show flashes of being pretty darn good.
So on the outside, that was the name I was going to bring up. And we're again, we're hearing good things about him. We knew he was a talented player coming out of high school. A lot of range, like
Lawrence Central kid from Indiana, so I'm familiar with him.
And so I've been wanting just on the edge, because after him, I would have to imagine, or even before him, Do you think Hicks is the first guy off the bench?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go what? Hicks.
It'll probably be Hicks. I mean, you could put Mickens on the opposite side, like
Yeah.
to get some of that, and then after that, it's
George.
He's more. We'll probably play more inside, maybe. But you know what? I'll say this: Ryan Day did specifically call him out as far as guys who he's been really impressed with this spring. So I think he's going to be someone who might be able to give more than what we think.
All right, so what about Sayin?
Again, he was someone who was talked about today during his press conference. He's a guy who I think he's very he's a talented young dude. Like he's got a lot of talent. He's very quick off the edge. I think he probably needs a little bit of coaching and development first. I think next year you're going to see him play a lot more. I think this year he kind of has to learn the ropes a little bit. And some of the other guys have gotten, they've quote unquote waited their turn. And, so I think he's going to be a little far. It's going to be a little hard for him to jump in the depth chart. So, we'll see him in mop-up duty. Like, after the Texas game, I fully expect him to see him in the next two games after that. But I don't really see him playing a ton of meaningful snaps this year.
So here's a question right here from Antoine Johnson. Hey, Antoine's a good guy, Michigan fan, but he's a good guy. He knows he's pretty knowledgeable about football. And by the way, Antoine, and everyone else, do not call me Mr. Garrison. I am not a South Park character, and I am not that guy. But of course,
you don't want to have a little puppet next to you to make some comments.
Oh my God. Well, how do you like your trench recruiting right now? I'm in love with it, especially on the offensive side. Defensively, it could get better. I think you would agree with that, Ryan. That like over the last few years, over the last few years, since basically JT and Jack Sawyer's freshman class has dropped off. I do think it's still being good, but not to the level that we expect. But on the offensive side, it's definitely on the up and up. Like, what do you say, Ryan?
I mostly agree. We've talked about how Larry, how it feels like he's been getting negatively recruited against for the last few years, and that hasn't helped as far as landing that true 5-star kid since JT and Jack came in the class of 2021. Offensive line, talked about it earlier. Again, they still haven't landed that, top 5-star billing guy, but I do believe that is coming. Bowen has proven he's a good recruiter. So I like the foundation that he's set up so far. And I'm kind of waiting for them to, for that real big boom to come, whether it's this year or next year, as far as the 5-star offensive line is concerned. But I'm definitely more concerned about the defensive line recruiting, but we're really going to find out this year how good those recruits were, because this year, I mean, we're placing everybody. So, the depth from the last few years is based off of those recruiting classes.
And Antoine, I saw you say, like you said, you don't think it's lacking. No, like Ryan, I believe the defense on the defensive side, it has been lacking. On the offensive side, it's been I would say it was lacking until this season. I looked this up. This is the first time Ohio State has signed 2 top 200 offensive linemen in 3 years. So in a class, and we've done it very early here now. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean when I said I think that's on the up and up. Defensively, on the defensive side in the trenches, we still got to see it. Like it's not bad, it's not average, it's still good, but it's not what we expect. So.
Yep. So as far as moving on here with the defensive preview, let's go to linebacker.
Yeah.
So you and I have both talked about how obviously Sonny's he's one of the starters and he's the leader, and he's got a good shot to wear the Block O jersey in my opinion. He's obviously entrenched as a starter. It'll depend on what kind of defense Patricia wants to run moving forward. but you and I both think Arvell Reese is going to be another starter, based on what we saw last year and how he's already performed in the spring. After that, I'm interested to see who they believe in. I do think they've liked what Peyton Pierce has done this spring as well. And I've James Laurinaitis has made some comments about Pierce so far, and I'm not concerned, but I'm interested to see how that linebacker depth behind really those three guys plays, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I've gotten really excited lately from what I've heard about the linebacker room. I think it's really athletic. From what we're hearing about Stover, and I'm not surprised. People might forget, or maybe they didn't notice at all. Stover's a very good athlete. Go check what he was doing out of high school. He was a running back also, so he has the tools to be a really good linebacker. Peyton Pierce also he was a highly touted linebacker coming out of high school. A lot of programs wanted him, and then of course you talk about Arvell Reese. You're talking about guys like Sonny Styles, who last year was his first time playing linebacker. Safety to play linebacker. The funny thing is, I bet you if Sonny wanted to, he could have entered the draft this season, and he probably would have gone top 5. He probably would have gone top 5 rounds.
You mean top 5 linebackers?
No, top. I think maybe depending on what he did at the combine. I would say top.
Whoa. Okay, let's pump the brakes. So you're saying he's gonna be a top 5 pick overall?
No, I said he would go in the top 4 to 5 rounds last year off his first year.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right.
Oh, come on now. I'm not that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. But
okay. I really think there's a lot there. Of course, you're talking about Riley Petty, John, and he come on and said he expects to play early.
I'm going to hear your thoughts on Petty, John. That's where I was going next. So let me hear you.
I like the confidence. I like he's got the size already. I mean, from the looks of it, he's the second or third largest linebacker on the team.
Yeah.
Behind Sonny and Arvell. So a lot of potential there. I think he's going to play early. I think we're going to see him more. I'd expect him to be more like in blitz packages. They talk a lot about playing wide 9. I think you can see him on there because you're gonna have CJ out there, 3 linebackers, probably your more athletic guys.
By the way, you're talking about his size. He's 6'2", 220. So
yeah, he's a big boy, man. he's pretty big. Actually, no. What I saw today says he's 227.
Okay, so he's gotten even bigger. I was just going off. I was going off 247. Obviously, Ohio State, they've got their numbers they've released since the spring. So
he's a big guy, man. So I was happy to hear that. Again, I love what James Laurinaitis is doing with the linebacker room. I keep saying this, man. They're starting to look like those Jim Tressel linebackers. They're big and they can move. And I love those type of, like a James Laurinaitis type of linebacker. James was very athletic and he can move and he was big. Sonny, athletic and big. I didn't even say Alfred. Athletic and big. Like there's a lot of talent in that linebacker room. I think it's deeper than people thought it would be coming into this season.
Yeah. I agree. I'm interested to see how much playing time Garrett Stover gets. You talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about time for him to at least flash for some playing time. Him and Peyton Pierce. So, and again, I'm interested to see, and this all is predicated based off of what system Patricia's going to run, and how many linebackers see the field, how much of a rotation he wants is going to be interesting. So I'm very intrigued, and that's something I'm going to be watching for the spring game. Like I'm going to have my eyes glued to the defense more than the offense, just because I want to know what Patricia's going to do. I know what Hartline's going to do. If he's been here a while, and I know he's talked about what his philosophy is going to be, but I want to see what Patricia wants to do.
No, like right here, man. You see it, man. Mike agrees. I think this recent class at Ohio State it's going to be one of the better ones that have come through, I believe.
I hope you're right.
I think there's a really good chance of that. It's mostly because of the players on the outside, the skill players. I would say guys like Devin Sanchez, of course, who is just.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the secondary then. What are your thoughts on the secondary as a whole?
I'm gonna start at safety because I think that's easier. I think it's an easier.
I say that's the easiest place to start. I think.
I think Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs. We don't need to talk about that. I think there's nothing to bring up there.
Best safety in college football. That's the analysis.
All that. Second best player in football. Like it's just
might be, yeah.
But the other guy, right? It's the other guy. Now, I do believe McClain is going to be the guy.
I think I agree.
Malik Harper is getting a lot of conversation right now, but the problem is, I think Caleb plays his position. You're a downhill safety. You are a strong safety. Now he's gotten bigger. He's about 6'3" now. Like 210, 212. So, and before that, he was already a hitter. Now, I think the times you can see him in the game is if maybe you want to rotate guys and put him at the nickel on a rundown. If you want to move, move down to the other safety, say Downs, go play deep and look for a little bit because you're playing a deep passing team where they wants to take shots. You probably bring Malik in the game because he can, bring some support to the linebackers in the front seven. But you need someone that can cover. So I think McClain's going to be that guy. Behind McClain, I think Fahim's going to be the next safety. I think he's the next guy behind it. So what do you say?
Well, let's start with, I guess, the quote-unquote battle between Malik and Jalen. Mm-hmm. They mentioned both of them specifically today. And they both have been getting a lot of first-team reps because Caleb Downs has been dealing with, some nagging injuries or whatever. And like we talked about, we know what he's going to do. Like he's the best player in college football. He does not need he's the best safety in college football. He doesn't need a ton of reps here in the spring. Like, you know what you're getting out of him. So the fact that I do like the fact that Hartford and McClain has been able to get some first team reps. I think that's good for both of them. And ultimately, I do agree with you that McClain is going to emerge as the starter because I do like his covering ability a little bit more. I think he's a little bit rangier back there. And with Downs being someone who can come in and lower the boom in the running game and cover a lot of ground, like you mentioned, it's just a better scheme fit, I think, for McClain to be back there. Now, I do think Hartford's going to get some playing time. Like, I do think he's going to see some snaps. And, I know we talked about this before. I wouldn't be shocked if they rotated Lorenzo Styles back there and get him some reps at safety as well. So I would put that out of the realm of possibility.
So Lorenzo, I was going to wait to talk about him because I think he's in his own little world, right?
Okay.
And I think we can easily transition this into the corners.
Yeah.
Because he's a nickel guy. And I think that, like I said, I think he might be early on, he might be the guy that starts in that nickel position. I would not be blown away if he was. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. But he's a good football player. He is. He's an athlete. And I think he should be on the field because I think he's a leader. He's older. He's been around the game. Like, Lorenzo Styles is a D1 football player.
Yep.
So
but say what I know what you want to say. I can see it. I know you want to say it. Just go ahead. Do it. Because I know you believe it.
Either way, what do you think I believe? I want to hear it.
I think what you're going to say is, yeah, yada, yada, Lorenzo, good at football, great. But Devin Sanchez is better. I think that's where you're going.
Goddamn right.
Just gas it up Lorenzo and be like, we'll take a hike, kid, because this other kid's better.
Man, I don't have to see it. I know. I just know. Like Iggy's gonna be the guy. He's gonna be out there. You know, Jermaine. They said, listen, like Dave said, the same thing he said for Ennis last year or for the last 2 years. When you see him when he's on the field, you feel him. And we don't mean Jermaine's a talker. Well, it's gonna be really interesting because who do you think is a bigger trash talker, Jermaine or Iggy?
Oh, I think it's probably Jermaine.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, even Osen can like talk a trash for a certain amount, and then he gets called for pass interference the next play. So
that's
probably backs it up, backs off a little bit.
But I truly believe when it comes down to it, he's gonna be one of those kids or one of those players. You can't keep him off the field.
Yeah,
we're talking 10-7 300 20 or no 10-6. Well, I think you're in 10-6 in the 100, 10-7 21-7 3 in the 200. That's fast. He's Will Johnson, but a better athlete. I'm not joking. He's Will Johnson, but a better athlete. And so,
he's the number one quarterback recruit in the country for a reason. Like he's a really good dude, and he's not just fast. He's ranged. Like he's long. He's got long arms. Like he's not one of those short corners who just runs fast. He's a bigger dude who can help defend some of the taller wide receivers as well. So. Yeah.
He's long and pause, Mike. Thank you for reminding me. Pause. He's really long. It's just like I'm still listening. I know someone has it. I'm waiting for the JJ versus Devin Sanchez reps to go live. I need to see the video. I really need to see them.
Maybe you're probably gonna wait till fall to see something like that. But like you, I mean. It's going to be Jermaine and it's going to be Igmanosin as the two outside corners. I do think Lorenzo is going to start as the nickel guy. Like you, I kind of hope Devin eventually takes over those reps just because I think he's so damn good. Mm-hmm. But I think it's – I mean, it seems like everyone else, like everyone in the room, like in the secondary room has Lorenzo Styles is like they all respect him. Like he's got a lot of respect in that room, not just as a football player, but as a leader. So I think they're still going to try to get him on the field as much as possible, whether it's at nickel or again at safety. It's in certain situations. So I do think he's going to see a lot of the field, but like you, I cannot wait to see Devin Sanchez actually get some real reps because I think he's going to be really freaking good.
And then, mind you,
also we still got Aaron Scott. Like I love Aaron Scott. I've been talking about him for 2 years.
Yeah. And Aaron Scott's gonna be really like this was funny about it. Aaron Scott probably in a lot of other places will be starting this upcoming season. Yeah. He's gonna be very good. I think we're gonna see him more on the outside. I think Bryce West is gonna be someone that we see more of that nickel position. Bryce West, by the way, is the second fastest guy in that DB room. And again, I harken back to that play against Tennessee. I don't care because Tennessee stars are still in the game, and Bryce West turned around, and it's really rare to see an Ohio State corner in the last 5 so years turn around. So that room's really deep. I think there's a good chance it's probably going to be the best DB room in the country again. There's a really good chance.
Definitely one of them. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, and again, if the safety room is if McClain is just that guy, it's gonna be tough to pass on this team again. I mean, I remember last year I asked before the season started, do you think Ohio State will give up less than 170 pass yards a game? I ended up correct.
Yeah.
I ended up correct. I think like it was like 7 people said no.
Well, I don't think either one of us have that many concerns with the secondary. I think that's by far the strongest part of the defense. So I think there will be almost no questions we have to answer on the defense, except, can Devin Sanchez actually fight for playing time as a true freshman? I think, that's the main question. Any other things you want to talk about here, the defense, before we get out of here?
True, just looking down here, I do not think so.
All righty. Well, then we will talk to you guys on Thursday for the call-in show. So bring your comments, bring your questions. Love to hear from you guys every Thursday. And we will see you at 8 o'clock on Thursday. OH.
I know.